Good morning. My name's Russell Raphael. I'm from a group called North London Ulysses. I hope this isn't the first time you're seeing me, because if that's the case, you've joined at video number 100 of 100. Because I have read all of Ulysses in the previous 99 videos, not just read them, but interpreted and discussed them every single page. So I do invite you to dip into the previous 99 videos before getting to this one. And they are all there on YouTube, North London Ulysses, or if you prefer in audio form, on a podcast called North London Ulysses. Every page read, every page explained. So my task today in this very final one is to interpret, to give my thoughts on Molly's final words, the 8th sentence. And that is what I will get on with now. Okay, sentence 8, the very last sentence in this book, Ulysses. And also the last sentence, obviously, of the chapter, Penelope. It won't have escaped your attention that we start with the word no. And indeed, in those first 3 or 4 lines of that, or first 3 lines anyway, we get a few. No, that's no way for him. He has no manners, nor no refinement, nor no nothing in his nature. Goodness me. So in terms of negative words, no, 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 nor, no, nor, no, nothing. 8 negative words out of barely a dozen words. And this is contemplating Boylan. So I think we can make up our mind of that. He is no poet, but what he is a suitor, a usurper, and he has been cut off at his erect stem, if I can be rather rude about it. But I think stem is quite appropriate because here that sort of tirade. This is not petulance. Molly is pruning, and pruning is to take care of something. She is taking care, without prejudging here, I venture to suggest, of her marriage, because against these no's stands Bloom's yes. I'm not giving anything away. I think we all know about the proliferation of yeses at the very end of the sentence, the end of the book. So for Molly, Bloom is return. He is her domestic gravity, if you like, the access of, continuity. And then, am I reading too much in? I want to talk about Lenita Laredo here. And Molly's, and the connection with Molly's period. Talked about this at a little more length in the video on Lenita Laredo, but her name being Little Moon, it's too much of a coincidence. She has caused, her missing mother has caused Molly's period, which Molly has now got it under some control. She's pinned together the bits of material. It's sufficiently for her to get back into bed, but somewhere in Molly's cycle, this lunar visitation of her mother, the lunar visitation really of her period, has been sent by her mother as a maternal sign discouraging the risk of her seeing Boylan again on Monday. Now, whether what, you know, obviously there's nothing in reality of this, but Molly likes to think in this way. She thinks in symbols. She threw the cards this morning. They prophesized Stephen coming up. She likes this sort of stuff, and I think Molly would recognise her mother in the onset of her period, her absent mother, and her body's calendar has become sort of an ethical reminder, and it's governing her sexual appetite. It's a red reminder of danger, and it's going to feed in, I feel, into her decision about whether she should meet with Boylan again the coming Monday. So, yeah, I think Lunita Laredo is a pretty important character at the end of the book. If we consider Molly to be an important character in our book, then we must consider Lunita as part of that. Okay, so let's go on to page 924. And a broadening into sexual politics here. We have stallions and lions, both of which Boylan has usurped the description, even though lion should be a Leo. It's Boylan that occupies her mind when she thinks in these terms, in terms of animal virility. And they arrive as emblems of sort of vulgar sex, his hips bearing down on her with a heaviness that she didn't particularly appreciate. But that was all, you know, when he had that look in his eye, he wasn't thinking of her comfort. He was thinking of his pleasure. He saw his prize and he was going for it. Right. So beyond that, we then get into this sort of juvenile and rather puerile rhyme, which turns out to be about a pipe cleaner with a brush. And she thinks it's rather pathetic that the boys thought that her as a little girl, or as a younger girl, would be offended by that little song. But of course, she's beyond that. She then bemoans the fact, I think it's still on the same page, she bemoans the fact that men can gallivant about town, being sexually liberal with their favours and are not condemned for it, whereas women are chained at home. Penelope was, Molly feels she is too, and she refuses to be trapped. The no of the culling becomes the no of the agency. She names these social mores, but will not be restricted by them. She will step beyond them. If the world won't dignify a woman's freedom, then she will dignify it herself. This is her nature. She's not waiting for social mores to catch up with how she feels. She's often doing it, and it's society's problem if it has a problem with her. Right, on to page 925. On page 925, she turns that same gaze upon Bloom. His sexuality is more tender, sometimes masochistic, also therefore vulgar, but human. She entertains the common claim that men desire women as sex objects and that this is natural, but she then punctures it. What does it mean that he fixates upon her bottom? It's the most impersonal part of her. It's insulting to be loved for one's bottom. Objectification reduces personhood to parts. She's not some sort of machine. She notices he kissed our hall door. Yeah, she notices Bloom kissing the hall door and presumes it to be another sexual deviation, a further obsession with inanimate objects like her bottom. She misunderstands the Jewish ritualistic symbolism of kissing the mezuzah, or absent the mezuzah, kissing where it would be. Nevertheless, Molly wants hugging arms around her, not her husband kissing the furniture by proxy. The wavelengths between them have misaligned. His semiotic fidelity versus her bodily need. She imagines rough sex at the docks, yet cannot enact it. The double standard is steel. Men cross those thresholds. Women cannot. Women stay at home. And hypocrisy exemplified at the bottom of page 925 with that King's Council that she spotted. Was it the day Boylan came around with their fish supper? So quite recently, someone has worked out that there was a fair chance that this KC might have been Tim Healy, one of the architects of Parnell's downfall. And so someone against whom Joyce conceivably might have plotted revenge, and this might conceivably be his revenge, accusing him of someone that was all politically sanctimonious by day and chased prostitutes by night. Anyway, be that as it may, I can't remember where I read that conjecture, and it was only conjecture, but I read it somewhere. Right, on to page 926. Molly seems to be drawing to some conclusions, and those might be that acceptance of Bloom, but on Molly's terms. She feels Bloom beside her in the bed. She pushes him away, making space. She is drawing boundaries. She's sort of in her head, I guess, and in the bed, making new rules. He wants breakfast in bed, okay, but she will not be his servant. But she does believe in omens, and that Don Poldo de la Flora comes back into her head. She once prophesied this man next to her way back in Gibraltar, and here he is, he's come true. And Molly believes in signs, but it is so if she is going to put up with him, it's going to be on her terms. The world, after all, she thinks will be much better run by women, and if she can't run the world, she's going to at least run her own home. Men kill, gamble, drink away the month's wages on payday. The world will be much better run by women. Bloom, in contrast, is not like that. He is sensible, at least he cares for his family. And so there's that to be grateful for, she thinks. Is it the same page? Yes, it is. She worries for Stephen, and in particular, that he's now motherless. He doesn't have a mother to worry about him, and he's wandering. He's wandering through the night and in danger. She didn't have a mother around to guide her, and so she feels that more acutely, that Stephen is now without a mother. Coming back to Lunita Laredo, perhaps she is there guiding in a very subtle way. Little Moon. Molly's also slightly jealous of May Dedalus, which is a little bizarre because May Dedalus has died, which is why Stephen is motherless. But Molly is jealous in that at least May saw her son grow up and reach adulthood, whereas sadly Molly did not get that pleasure with her son. She ponders why Ruby died. When they conceived in that act of love, her and Bloom climaxed together, which she considered to be a good sign. An old wives' tale that sort of synchronized pleasure augurs health. I'm not sure where I've got that from, whether that is an old wives' tale, but Molly seems by the text to be implying that it might be. And yet Ruby turned out bad. Couldn't survive more than 11 days. Is that Bloom's fault? She wonders if, as Bloom blames himself because he believes the old wives' tale, I think it's a Jewish one, that the health comes from the father. So bad health must mean it's Bloom's fault. Or she also thinks that before having sex, she was standing by the window and saw the two dogs rutting in the street. Might this be the problem? Ought she blame herself? I can't imagine there's any Catholic dogma where the sight of this leads to that, but there certainly is a feeling, I understand, that you shouldn't do anything to excite sexual pleasure. Sex is there for reproduction. Standing there watching dogs copulate in the street would be an occasion of sin. Not a cosmic law, but a caution about lust and scandal. Whilst Molly would see this as hypocritical, she also believes in omens and signs, so perhaps that feeds into, might this be why Rudy turned out as he did? And on to page 927. Red. At the top of that page, she buries Rudy in a red woolen corselet. Does it say red? It says, I want to have buried him in that little woolly jacket. Somewhere before we know it to be red wool. Stephen, in this sort of soul transmigration kind of thing, talked about ruddy wool back in Proteus. I'm pretty sure it's red. I'm calling it red. Red for blood, warmth, maternal shelter. We have a vague echo here of an Agnus Dei. It's wool. Of Bloom being this kind of sacrificial lamb. And Molly's, the sacrament of grief here is tactile. And it's really quite a big moment for Molly. Crying as I was, I shouldn't have buried him in it. I should have given it to some poor child. Illogical as it was, she wanted to bury him to keep him a mother's warmth, to have a sign from her mother for him to take with him wherever he was going. Anyway, her mind returns to Stephen, who she perceives as in danger, wandering off through the night without a mother's love. Stephen might represent a new son that she might save. If he had stayed the night, she would have housed him, fed him, guided him. Because she thinks he might end up in some bordello, her ire shifts to women, a bunch of bitches. A bleak acknowledgement that patriarchy is policed by both sexes. She thinks on Daedalus, a strange name, Daedalus. That makes her think of other Spanish names that she played with in Gibraltar, Opisso, and things that made her laugh back as a kid, and sort of asserting her cosmopolitan wit, we are reminded that Molly is cosmopolitan. She comes from a different continent, exotic Europe, almost Africa, to parochial little Ireland that's too small to hold Molly, really. And that she feels not a day older from back then. She's imagining herself as timeless, like Joyce tells us to imagine Molly as timeless, a Mother Earth, a body measured in seasons, not in normal time. And on we go to 928 in this whistle-stop tour of the last sentence. Molly thinks how she might impress Stephen, and one of the things she comes up with is she knows some Spanish, and she fantasizes about Stephen staying, and if Bloom is making breakfast in bed for one, he can make it for two. She also potentially places him in Millie's bed, which is a rather precise domestic symbol, and Stephen in Millie's bed is this sort of palimpsest of care and conflation, a blurring of Molly and Millie, wife, mother, house person. She being both the domestic goddess and the sexual temptress. She imagines what she might wear, back to red Turkish slippers, desire woven into the fabric. We had Circe's theatrics, where Molly was dressed as in sort of Turkish garb in Bloom's fantasy, and Stephen earlier on, way back in Proteus, I think, had this dream about on the street of harlots and Harun al-Rashid, and it was a Turkish bordello with a woman inside, and one imagines who else could that have been but Molly. So clothing here, this is sort of semi-erotic house clothes that she wants to wear, it is seen here as not mere dazzle, but or a symbol, as invitation to Stephen, as a signal to him. And we're on to page 929. Molly decides she is going to get up early when the market opens and go and get some fruit and veg, maybe some fish, because she's thinking about Stephen perhaps returning that day. She's often buys for three anyway because she forgets Millie's no longer there, so why not? But then she thinks, oh God, but Friday's not a lucky day for starting a romance. And Molly, as we've said, believes in omens. So back to Bloom. She thinks, well, he wants breakfast in bed. I'll make him breakfast in bed. Continuing drawing boundaries. If the marriage is going to move forward, it's going to be on Molly's terms. Yes, I'll make him breakfast in bed, but spitefully, and throw it at him. And if he fetishizes her bottom, then she will weaponize her bottom, and she will let him kiss her up there if he wants, but she will set the prices. She will force the performance. She will turn fantasy into punishment. She will throw the affair down Bloom's throat by pointing out stains, the ejaculate dried on sheets and on undergarments. She will bring the private into view, a choreography of humiliation and control. There is suggestion that she will make Bloom watch her do it with Boylan, a little like Bloom's fantasy in Circe, where the phantasmagorical Boylan comes in and lets Bloom watch at the keyhole while he does it a few times with your wife. And Bloom is very excited by this prospect. Now, does she quite say that? I'm not sure. The text sort of hovers at the threshold, so it's left as a possibility without formal declaration, if you like. Like Bloom, Molly goes on to consider that there's worse things in life than adultery. It's not the worst sin that you can commit. Which Bloom also considered, didn't he, in Ithaca, as part of his abnegation and coming to terms with the whole thing. Right, and that Bloom has forced her to be an adulteress. Something also that Bloom recognised his own complicit, that he was complicit in that. Okay, we're moving on to page 930, and we are getting very close to the end. And Molly's revenge on Bloom of throwing the affair in his face, showing her getting dressed on Monday morning in preparation for Boylan's return, that she's stalled in that revenge and potentially a little again by her mother, Lunita Laredo, because she suddenly remembers about her period. And what does that mean? What are the implications for a further visit on Monday? But if she goes back to Boylan, it won't be out of any sense of romance. Boylan too will be dealt with on her terms. It will be businesslike. The romance will be stripped, and there you have it. And then finally on page 930, as she's trying to drift off to sleep, she notices the flowers in the flowered wallpaper in the wall pattern, contrasting potentially with the wallpaper in Bella Cohen's front parlour in the brothel, which had a yew tree frond pattern on it, which that might be interesting. So I don't want to make too much of the contrast between the yew tree leaves and the flowers on this wallpaper. I've read a little bit about the symbolism of a yew tree leaf, but I just don't know enough about it. I know it's associated with graveyards. I know it's associated with poison. It is poisonous, I believe, but it seems to be about and passage to the next life, but also reincarnation. It has all sorts of interesting properties and symbolism. So let's just leave it that flowers, we know, are symbols of rejuvenation, returning every spring. So this is a good thing. They're associated with spring and sunshine and new life. Okay, and talking of return, on page 931, Molly is planning Stephen's return. Not today, because it's a Friday, but soon. She's cleaning. She wants to buy lots of flowers. And so Molly and flowers and nature. She picked a man whose surname was Bloom, whose father's original family name meant flower. So in these final pages of the book, flowers will become increasingly prevalent. They're almost Molly's sacrament of life, cyclical, sensual, hospitable and holy, the rose being symbolic of the Virgin Mother. We can talk about it at the end of Dante's Paradiso, but that's going off piste, I'm afraid. Right. But certainly this cosmic rose bridges the gap between the domestic and the cosmic. Bloom calls her the flower of the mountain when they were in Howth Head, and on Howth Head, and the sun shines for you. Molly wants to make a house, the house a mountain of flowers, a sanctuary of growth. She loves nature, and the flowers are the creation as proof of goodness and of life. She too, like Bloom earlier, recalls that time on Howth Head, and this famously is how the book will come to an end. She passes the seed. They had seed cake, and they kiss, mouth to mouth kiss, and she passes the seeds in her saliva into Bloom's mouth. She nourishes, it's mutual nourishment. She is feeding him at the same time, or just before, or just after, that he is fertilizing her with his seed. And what is the fruition of that fertilization? Millie. Proof that Bloom can bloom, even the horror and the shadow of Rudy's death, and the unassailable grief that's brought on by that. The flowers are somehow symbolic that they did make life. They made a beautiful little girl who is now a beautiful young woman. And that the paradox that of her thinking earlier about the two dogs rutting in the street, and that something Catholic related to that means that the boy won't be healthy and can't live, yet they had sex out of wedlock and produced a beautiful girl in Millie. And surely this is a healing thought of symbolism over theology, and how humans somehow she's created a mythological reason for Rudy's not working, where it was just bad luck. Some kids are just not healthy, and that's that. But she ought to think about Millie and the lovely daughter that she has become, even though they were rowing in their final months. But that's a mother-daughter thing, pubescent thing, and that they will surely overcome. And here we are on page 932, not quite the final page, but only because it sort of bleeds a little into 933. Essentially, we're on the final page of the book. We started all that time ago in the Penguin, way back on page, is it page 1? It is page 1. Not all stories start on page 1, but this one did. And now here we are on page 932. And Gibraltar's back. It intrudes back into Molly's thoughts. What Bloom cannot know before his time. It's Molly's secret archive. She's told him bits. But here it asserts itself into her thoughts right at the end of the book. But much of these thoughts are still about Bloom. Much might be in this last sentence about Stephen. Molly imagines touching him, guiding him, loving him. And where do we get to right at the end? We get a lot of yeses on that mountain. We know yes corresponds to vagina in the letter to Budgin. But I think it would take someone with a very hard heart indeed to think it doesn't correspond to love. The word known to all men. Molly didn't learn it in her childhood because she'd never mother, amor matris, the love of a mother. She'd never mother there to teach it to her. She's had to learn it by herself, but she knows it now. She's dealt with all the business-like stuff with Bloom and with Boylan. It comes back to love. But love is not only about romance. Love is about care. Floral lore. Love is tending for flowers. It is about pruning, culling, feeding, arranging, blooming, and when necessary, allowing to die. Rudy was a flower that was not yet ready for this world. He had to be let go. Millie has been fed and arranged and bloomed, and she is now off, blown with the wind to fertilize somewhere else. The nose of Boylan, not the nose, but the no as opposed to the opposite of yes. This is also about pruning. This is part of the law of flowers. The yes of Bloom is the basis, though, of that law. You tend a garden because you love it. You want it to be the best it can be. It can't be perfect. Nothing's perfect, but you're doing your best. And the little moon, Molly's mother, the unseen hand, is guiding things. The moon is as vital to a garden as the sun. It is part of the cycle, the calendar cycle. It marks a body's time and a seasonal time, and will take care of the future as well as the now. And that might be an appropriate note on which to end. What else can I say? Sentence 8. We've punished a lover. We have the potential of saving a son. We have cherished a memory of the flowers and of the sea and of love. Not first kiss, that was Mulvey, but first making love. Molly, as this planetary thing, has turned. Bloom will turn with her. Bloom is her little moon, as well as her mother being her little moon. And I think sentence 8 completes that cycle, not forever, because the cycle always moves. But here we are. We're at the end of the book. We're feeling optimistic for where Bloom and Molly will go from here. Not just what was said, but the rhythm of the way it was said and the crescendo of the yeses. Not quite an orgasm, I don't think. I don't see how it can be mid-period. What do I know? But something otherworldly in any event. So that's the end of sentence 8. What more to say? I do intend to produce a little video on some thoughts covering the book as a whole. It's not going to be a terribly long video, I don't think. massive amount is written if you want a summary of the book, but more my concluding thoughts. Well, that's it. That's my analysis of the end of Ulysses, and with it, the end of my analysis and consideration of the book as a whole, at least as far as the core project is concerned. This is video number 100 of 100 videos to read and analyse every single page. It's not quite the end of my story, even though it might be the end of James Joyce's story. I will continue to produce videos, as I've just alluded to. There'll be some concluding thoughts, but also further videos in the extra videos series, taking a broader view of different aspects as they occur to me, and I'll slot those in to the relevant playlist. But as far as the core project is concerned, of the 100 videos, I'm done. And it only remains for me to really thank you from the bottom of my heart if you've followed along with me. I've really enjoyed making these. I hope you get something from it. I hope this project becomes a useful companion for students, readers, and Joyce scholars in years to come. Where I've offered original thoughts or interpretations, feel free to draw on them and use them, but just please do so in a way that keeps the spirit and integrity of the work intact. All the material here is copyright protected, but it's shared in a friendly way for anyone that wants to learn, teach, or think about Ulysses alongside me, and I'm sure you would give me the appropriate credit or just respect the academic and intellectual integrity of the effort that I've put in. So, but there it is. It's out there. It's like Ulysses itself, like the book itself. I've launched it to the world, for better or for worse, my humble little effort, and that's it. So thank you so much again. I'm Russell Raphael from North London, Ulysses. Goodbye.